You know when you're pushing a kid on a swing?
Oh, yeah. Best feeling when you get the rhythm right.
Right. And you get that timing just perfectly. So you don't even need to shove them with all your strength. You just like wait for that specific moment at the peak of their arc and give a tiny tap.
Exactly. And suddenly that kinetic energy just multiplies.
Yeah, the swing arcs higher and higher, turning your little push into this massive soaring movement. We intuitively understand that kind of wave amplification at the playground.
We do. But it turns out that exact same physical principle,
Stealing energy from a background medium just by timing the rhythm perfectly.
right, that is currently the holy grail for almost every frontier of science right now.
I mean, we're talking about everything from astrophysics and how the sun heats itself to, next generation microscopic computer chips.
It's a fascinating through line to explore today.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're unpacking a huge stack of sources to connect these dots. We've got dense academic papers on magnetohydrodynamics.
Always a mouthful.
Yeah, and partially ionized solar plasma. We're looking at a 2018 Journal of Applied Physics study on the Great Pyramid, tech articles on post-6G magnonics, and even some wild alternative history theories from YouTube and The Sean Ryan Show.
It's quite the mix. But whether we're looking at the intense plasma heat of the sun's corona, or experimental microchips, or even theoretical acoustics inside the Great Pyramid, the core theme is identical.
Right, it's all about how you find a river of energy that's already flowing and like engineer a paddle that perfectly syncs with that current.
Exactly. You amplify a wave rather than fighting against it.
Okay, so before we get into the invisible magnetic fields of outer space or ancient megaliths, let's keep it grounded. Let's talk about something you can actually see and feel.
Ocean swells.
Yes. Specifically, this company, Core Power Ocean, they're on a mission to make wave energy, like 10 times more efficient to fill the gaps in wind and solar grids.
Because the sun goes down, the wind stops blowing. But ocean waves are essentially concentrated wind energy that travels for days.
Right. And the hardware they're building is just stunning. They're building these C4 and C5 machines.
The manufacturing alone is a huge breakthrough. These are massive buoy-like hulls, like 9 to 10 meters in diameter.
Yeah, and weighing 100 tons. But they don't build them in a traditional shipyard. They use this fully automated, mobile 3D weaving factory.
That's incredible.
They literally just weave glass fiber layer by layer and print the entire hull in 48 hours.
Which totally solves the supply chain headache. You don't have to ship giant hulls across the world. You just ship the 3D printer to the local port.
Exactly. But the true marvel isn't the hull, it's the mechanics inside. Historically, wave devices failed because they either got destroyed in storms or they were just too heavy to produce power from normal waves.
Right, they're too sluggish.
Yeah. Core Power tackled the extraction problem first, using a system inspired by the human heart.
Invented by a medical doctor, actually. Steve Lundbeck.
Which, okay, I have to admit, when I read that, my brain kind of short-circuited. Like, how does a human heart power a giant ocean buoy?
It sounds like a massive leap, I know. But mechanically, it's brilliant. Think about how a heart pumps blood. When the ventricles squeeze, that takes active muscle contraction.
Right.
But the heart doesn't just passively relax to let blood back in. The tissue itself acts almost like a loaded spring during that squeeze.
Oh, so it stores that mechanical energy.
Exactly. When the muscle relaxes, that stored tension actively pulls the heart open, acting like a hydraulic pump to draw blood in super fast.
Wow. So Core Power uses a similar hydraulic pre-tensioning cylinder.
Yeah. When a wave lifts the buoy, it generates power, but it also heavily pressurizes this internal cylinder. Then when the buoy drops into the trough, the pressure forces it down incredibly fast.
So it extracts maximum power on the downstroke, too. It's not just floating, it's actively driving itself.
Right. And they pair this with something called a wave spring, invented by Jorgen Hals. It's a phase control technology.
Okay, let's unpack this part, because a wave spring is literally a negative spring, which sounds totally counterintuitive.
It really does.
Normal springs resist motion. You push them, they push back to the center. But a negative spring pushes away from its midpoint. It actively encourages the motion.
What's fascinating here is how you can visualize it. Imagine a heavy door perfectly balanced in its frame. If you push it slightly closed, a hinge mechanism suddenly takes over and swings it the rest of the way.
Oh, I see. It accelerates away from the center point.
Precisely. By tuning that negative spring inside the buoy, They create artificial resonance with the ocean wave.
They're doing the playground swing tap.
Exactly.
So they take a standard, sluggish 1-meter swell, and the buoy dynamically multiplies that energy, moving 3 meters up and down.
And each device produces about 330 kilowatts. They cluster them into these 10-megawatt core packs.
But wait, here's the obvious problem. If you have a machine engineer to actively amplify its own movement.
What happens in a storm?
Yeah. A negative spring sounds like it would just rip itself to shreds in a hurricane.
And that's where their storm protection mode comes in. They've tested this in massive 20-meter waves off Portugal. When sensors detect extreme swells, the device essentially detunes its own stiffness.
It goes out of sync with the ocean?
Exactly. It alters its frequency response. Instead of amplifying, it goes mathematically limp. The massive swells just wash right over it harmlessly.
That is so smart. It's just like pitching the blade on a wind turbine so it doesn't overload.
Same exact engineering logic.
Okay, so we're engineering physical machines to actively steal kinetic energy from water. But nature is already doing this with invisible waves on a much grander scale.
Right, which brings us to magnetohydrodynamics, or MHD.
Yeah, let's scale this up. We're moving from ocean water to conductive fluids and plasmas.
The math is remarkably similar, though. In astrophysics, MHD wave amplification is taking energy from a background plasma flow and transferring it into waves, making them grow exponentially.
I always hear plasma and think of, like, sci-fi blasters, but it's really just superheated gas where electrons are stripped off the atoms, right?
Yeah, making it highly electrically conductive. And because it's conductive, it gets completely tangled up with magnetic fields.
Magnetic fluid dynamics.
Exactly. In these environments, you get Alfvén waves. Imagine the magnetic field lines passing through the plasma are like thick, heavy guitar strings.
Okay.
If a disruption plucks one of those strings, it sends a twisting ripple down the line. That ripple is an Alfvén wave. You also have fast and slow magnetosonic waves.
Which are basically sound waves moving through the plasma, right? But compressing both the gas and the magnetic field.
You got it.
And just like the ocean buoy needs a specific tune, these plasma waves need triggers. The sources mention shear flow instabilities.
That's when layers of plasma slide past each other at different speeds, creating immense friction.
Right. Or swirling helical flows. But the coolest one is parametric resonance. That's the playground swing tap. A rhythmic external driver perfectly resonating with the wave to amplify it.
And the cosmic implications are huge. Physicists have debated for ages why the sun's corona is so much hotter than its surface.
MHD wave amplification is the leading answer, isn't it?
Yes. Amplified Alfvén waves transport kinetic energy up from the surface, and when those magnetic guitar strings snap, they dump all that stolen energy as pure heat.
And the same math drives galactic dynamos, creating those huge spiral magnetic arms in galaxies.
It scales up infinitely.
But it doesn't just happen in deep space. There's this huge debate among physicists about Earth's rotational power, the theory that the Earth itself acts as a massive homopolar generator.
Basically, a giant, rotating, conductive body spinning inside a magnetic field, which perfectly introduces the Zeldovich effect.
Oh man, Yakov Zeldovich, the Soviet physicist.
Right. He proposed this mind-bending idea.
Right.
If you bounce electromagnetic waves off a spinning, electrically conductive cylinder, the wave that bounces back is actually stronger than the one you sent.
Wait, so the wave essentially robs the cylinder of its kinetic energy?
It physically steals rotational momentum.
Just to make itself bigger.
Precisely. It slows the spin slightly to convert kinetic energy into electromagnetic energy. And when you scale that up to the Earth, the theoretical conduits for this transfer are deep, moving subterranean fluids.
Like massive underground saltwater aquifers. Because saltwater is highly conductive.
Exactly.
So underground rivers could act like massive amplifier cables, milking the planet's rotation. And we actually see a localized version of this in amateur radio, right? The saltwater amplifier effect.
Oh yeah, ham radio operators have known about this for decades.
Yeah.
They seek out highly conductive coastal saltwater because it drastically enhances their radio wave propagation.
It's a localized terrestrial example of conductive fluids amplifying signals.
It really highlights the beauty of physics across scales. The math governing parametric resonance holds true for a Portuguese ocean swell, a plasma disk in space, or a saltwater aquifer.
It's the exact same mechanism. And to prove how universal it is, let's shrink it down to the microscopic level, post-6G telecommunications.
We have to shrink it down because our current tech is hitting a hard physical wall. Standard silicon chips process data by moving physical electrons.
Moving electrons creates friction. They bump into atoms, which creates heat.
Right. And as we push towards 6G, handling hundreds of gigahertz of data, those traditional chips will just melt.
So enter magnonics and the spin wave chip. Instead of pushing electrons through a wire, these chips rely on spin.
Which doesn't mean the electron is physically rotating like a top.
Right, it's the intrinsic magnetic orientation. If you disturb the magnetic spin of one electron, it tilts. That tilt forces the next one to tilt, creating a ripple, a magnon.
The best analogy here is a stadium wave. The people aren't running laps around the bleachers, they're just standing up and sitting down in place.
Right, the energy passes around the whole stadium, but nobody moved from their seat.
Because the electrons aren't flowing anywhere, there's virtually zero friction. You process staggering amounts of information without the massive heat.
It's completely frictionless. But the roadblock was always control, right? They used to need giant external electromagnets to guide the spin waves.
Which obviously makes them useless for a smartphone. But a recent Eureka Alert breakthrough solved this. They built the first standalone spin wave chip with a built-in magnetic field.
They engineered the architecture of the chip itself to naturally guide the resonance.
It's a profound synthesis of everything we're discussing. Nanoscale chips, planetary generators, wave buoys. The goal is designing geometry to control and amplify fields without friction.
Which raises an incredibly provocative question. If we can engineer geometries at the microscopic level to process energy through a stationary medium, could an ancient, massive structure have been built to do the exact same thing with the Earth's fields?
This is where we cross from verified modern physics into historical speculation.
Yes, let's talk about the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Okay, let's start with the hard verified science first. In 2018, ITMO University published a study in the Journal of Applied Physics. They used multipole analysis to study how the pyramid interacts with electromagnetic waves.
Multipole analysis is basically a math trick, right? Breaking a complex 3D shape down into simple points of radiation to see where energy pools.
That's a great way to put it. And they proved that the specific shape of the Great Pyramid can resonantly focus radio waves, specifically waves between 200 and 600 meters in length.
Wow.
Under resonance, the pyramid physically concentrates electromagnetic energy directly into its internal chambers and pools it beneath its base.
And scientists are literally studying this shape to design nanoparticles for solar cells now.
They are. So it's an undeniable, mathematically proven fact that the structure acts as a resonator.
Which brings us to the highly speculative but mechanically fascinating theories from the Sean Ryan Show transcripts, specifically the work of Christopher Dunn.
The pyramid power plant theory.
Right. It takes those verified acoustic properties and posits the pyramid was originally an industrial machine.
Built intentionally over an active aquifer, which, connecting back to the Earth's homopolar generator, provides that moving conductive fluid.
The mechanics of this theory are so detailed. It claims chemicals were dropped down the narrow shafts into the queen's chamber, creating a violent reaction that released massive amounts of hydrogen gas.
And that expanding hydrogen moves up into the grand gallery.
Which functioned as a series of Helmholtz resonators, like when you blow over an empty glass bottle and hear that hum. The theory claims the gallery was tuned to vibrate at an F-sharp chord.
And the material science of this theory is what intrigues engineers. The key's chamber, where this acoustic energy was directed, is built of dense rose granite.
Which is packed with quartz crystals, and quartz is piezoelectric.
Exactly. When you compress quartz, physically or with intense acoustic resonance, it generates an electrical charge. So you have expanding hydrogen and massive acoustic resonance squeezing this chamber, generating immense power.
And the architecture guides it perfectly. The opening into the king's chamber is exactly 4.8 by 8.4 inches. The theory says that's a perfect dimension for a waveguide tuned to the microwave frequency of a hydrogen atom.
You also have the massive relieving stones above the chamber. Mainstream Egyptology says they just hold up the ceiling. But this theory claims their rough tops were chipped away intentionally to tune them, like a tuning fork.
And the exterior. The pyramid used to be covered in highly polished Tura limestone, hauled from hundreds of miles away. Why do that when you have huge quarries next door?
Well, the theory points out Tura limestone has incredibly low magnesium content.
Which is crucial because magnesium allows rock to conduct electricity. Without it, the Tura limestone acts as a perfect dielectric insulator.
It traps the energy inside, preventing leaks, and pushes it all upward toward a highly conductive gold capstone to be shot into the ionosphere.
And if you know electrical engineering, this totally mirrors Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower.
Absolutely. Tesla built his tower over an aquifer on Long Island. His plan was to use moving subterranean water to create a deep sound matching the Earth's natural frequency.
He wasn't just transmitting radio signals. He wanted to inject massive waves into the ground, hit resonance, and turn the planet into a worldwide wireless power grid.
A giant cavity resonator.
Okay, I am completely captivated by these parallels, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
So do.
The ITMO study proves the pyramid can focus radio waves just by its geometry. But this alternative history insists it was built for that. If they generated massive piezoelectric power, where's the infrastructure? Where are the ancient light bulbs? The Egyptians didn't even have glass.
This raises an important question about intentionality versus physical coincidence. Interestingly, the proponents on the Sean Ryan show actually agree with you there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they argue the dynastic ancient Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. They claim the Egyptians merely found them long after the original builders were gone and repurposed these inert machines for burials.
So they were completely unaware of the industrial function.
Right. But honestly, from an engineering standpoint, the origin story is secondary. The undeniable fact is the structure perfectly mimics modern wave-guiding principles.
Which drops us into the most heated aspect of these narratives. And, just to be crystal clear to you listening, we are neutrally reporting the claims made in these YouTube sources and the Sean Ryan show. We aren't endorsing these conspiracies or taking a political side.
We're just looking at the claims.
Right. But if this kind of free global energy amplification is theoretically possible, and Tesla believed it was, why aren't we plugging into the dirt right now? We're looking at the intersection of disruptive tech and economic power.
The historical narrative always centers on the economic threat of abundant energy. The classic example is J.P. Morgan pulling his funding for Wardenclyffe.
Supposedly, Morgan asked, how do you put a meter on that?
Right, because look at his portfolio. He owned the copper mines for the wires, rubber farms for insulation, coal factories for power, the railroads. Free wireless energy would have dismantled his global empire overnight.
And the speculation doesn't stop with Tesla. The sources list alleged suppressed inventors throughout the 20th century, like Stanley Meyer, who claimed to invent a water-powered car using a hydrogen fuel cell.
He famously ran out of a restaurant screaming he'd been poisoned and died in the parking lot.
Or Sparky Sweet. He had videos of voltmeters showing his solid-state devices generating unplugged energy. The narrative claims black vans showed up, his research was seized, and he suddenly died of a heart attack.
But the most documented case is Tesla's own research. When he died, the U.S. Office of Alien Property seized 80 boxes of his life's work.
Most were returned, but the persistent claim is that 20 boxes went missing. Speculation is they contained research on directed energy weapons and weather manipulation.
Which ties directly into claims about HAARP in Alaska, the massive antenna array ionizing plasma in the ionosphere. The conspiracy claims HAARP is the weaponized realization of Tesla's stolen research.
The sources even mention how these topics face suppression on platforms like YouTube compared to places like Rumble. But whether these stories of black vans and missing boxes are genuine conspiracies or just urban legends, they act like a cultural pressure relief valve.
How do you mean?
Well, look at how hard a legitimate company like Core Power has to fight to get wave energy funded today against fossil fuels. The idea of free energy that just requires tapping the swing is terrifying to an established economic machine.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a profound truth. We say knowledge is power, but energy is control. The deep resistance to new energy paradigms, whether it's funding ocean buoys or the mythology of Tesla's stolen boxes, shows how tightly society is bound to how it generates and meters power.
It's genuinely wild to trace this journey. We started with Core Power's mechanical negative springs bobbing in Portugal. We zoomed out to magnetohydrodynamics heating the solar corona.
We shrank down to the frictionless spins of magnetic microchips.
And we stood inside the piezoelectric granite of the Great Pyramid, tracing the acoustic resonance of Tesla's unfulfilled dream.
Yeah, but it all comes back to that initial concept. The medium is already in motion. The energy is flowing all around us, waiting for the perfectly timed tap to amplify it.
So next time you are out in the world, I want you to remember this. The world around you is overflowing with invisible kinetic and magnetic rivers. Next time you stand on a beach or use your smartphone or see a picture of Giza, remember the immense untapped energies flowing right through you.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating thought to ponder. If a stationary limestone pyramid can accidentally or intentionally focus electromagnetic resonance, and modern engineers have to 3D print 100-ton hulls just to harvest the ocean's surface.
Yeah.
What kind of massive natural acoustic and magnetic architectures might the Earth's subterranean geology be forming beneath our feet right now, spontaneously amplifying massive energies in the dark that we simply haven't built the sensors to detect yet?